Um, Hi everybody, welcome to this public information meeting for Rapid Route B. I'm Ross Kaler, I'm the City of Fitchburg's Senior Transportation Engineer. So I just wanted to welcome all of you and let you guys know if you have any Fitchburg specific questions. I'll be here throughout the presentation, but I will hand it over to Metro Transit and Liz Callan for the presentation.
Great, thanks Ross, and thanks for having us out here tonight, and thank you all for joining us. Tonight we are going to go over what's called the draft locally preferred alternative and next steps. And my name is Liz Callan. I'm with the City of Madison Department of Transportation. I'm a transportation planner. So a little bit about the route. We are calling it Rapid Route B, also called the North-South Bus Rapid Transit. Kind of a partnership between Metro and the City of Fitchburg. And this will be Metro Transit's second bus rapid transit route. It'll be 11.5 new miles of BRT running way. So the route you see on the map here, the green line, the route that is kind of overlapping with the red will be continuing the sharing the running way and the stations with the Rapid Route A, which is what's under construction right now. And then the new segments are 11.5 miles of new running way going onto the north side of Madison here, and then into South Madison, and then into Fitchburg. So we're looking at 26 new stations total, and this is round 2 of public involvement. So we came out in November, kind of did a project launch, got some public feedback. Now we're coming back out to kind of talk a little bit about some updates that we've made and how we've responded to feedback, and just kind of talk about next steps in the project. So what is bus rapid transit? It's really enhanced bus service that's designed to act like light rail, but at a fraction of the cost, through a lot of different features that really enhances the speed and efficiency and convenience of the service. So things include service every 15 minutes during most of the day, high quality stations with raised platforms, priority at traffic signals, which means when the transit vehicle is approaching an intersection with a priority signal, it will have the ability to either keep a green light just a little bit longer green, or switch it from a red to a green a little bit faster. So not like the full prioritization that emergency vehicles have, but enough to kind of help that vehicle continue moving as much as possible. Similarly, dedicated lanes with fewer stops, getting the bus out of traffic and away from other vehicle conflicts. Metro is launching a faster fare payment system that will be part of the BRT system, as well as on other Metro routes. And then the routes that are dedicated for bus rapid transit will have all electric 60-foot buses. And you'll also start seeing those soon, because those were purchased as part of the East-West Bus Rapid Transit and will be used on the existing Route B before it's kind of fully upgraded to Bus Rapid Transit. So we also want to talk a little bit about why. So why are we talking about Bus Rapid Transit? Why is this investment important for people and businesses along the corridor? So this service will have an additional 53,000 people that will have access to Bus Rapid Transit within walking distance of a station, 40,000 additional jobs. There are a whole slew of destinations along the corridor, schools, childcare centers, grocery stores, hospitals, many destinations here in Fitchburg included. Different accessibility features at the stations that will make boarding the bus a lot more accessible, safety improvements near the intersections where those stations will be located. It will also serve about 14,000 lower income families who live within walking distance of the station, and it will allow our region really to leverage millions in federal investment with this project. This is also a really important project that kind of shows our commitment to equity. About 40% of the people who live along the route are people of color, and we want to make sure that these kind of enhanced transit services are available to people, of all backgrounds that live in our community, in our city, in our region. Another important piece of the why is kind of the necessity piece. So, the Madison area has continued to grow and will continue to grow, and we just don't have room, nor do we want to continue expanding to allow people to, continue to have, single occupancy vehicles be their primary mode of transportation. So this is really another part of that kind of growth plan to make it easier, more sustainable, and more convenient for people to get around. A lot of other major cities who are in this kind of trajectory of growth have taken this step. There are BRT systems going up and that have gone up across the country. And, we think this is a really important and really a good fit for Madison as well, and the whole Madison area, including Fitchburg, of course. So what is a locally preferred alternative? So I mentioned that at the beginning, but it's kind of a technical term that refers to a community's preferred mode and route that best meets the needs of the corridor. So this is kind of a technical term that the federal government has kind of made part of the process for funding, but it's essentially a milestone in the project where we try to come to an agreement on, first of all, the mode, which we have, which is bus rapid transit, the route alignment and the station locations. We're also trying to get some agreement on the running way, so where will the bus lanes be located? But it's really still at a relatively high level. It's not a detailed design document, and it's really kind of the beginning. So we'll be able to start that more detailed engineering and design work after the locally preferred alternative is adopted in the communities, that including Fitchburg and Madison. And then it's also not the end of public involvement. It's really just, again, the beginning. So we'll be coming back out with more information when we have some more detailed design information to get feedback from people. But it really just kind of minimizes delays and just kind of gets us that nice milestone to continue moving forward. So I'm going to kind of walk through a summary of the draft locally preferred alternative, which we've developed, again, based on that public feedback we've heard, what we know about the route and best practices in bus rapid transit development. So as I mentioned, the mode has been identified, and that was part of a 2012 Metropolitan Planning Organization study where they looked at many different modes of transit. So they looked at light rail, they looked at commuter rail and streetcar, and bus rapid transit was identified as the most cost-effective way to meet the goals of the area that it was planned to serve. So this again is that recommended route that I kind of went over at the beginning in the green line. I'll show some more detailed drawings of this so you can see exactly what roads that this is going on. And then the service plan. So this is essentially going to match what the existing Route B is doing right now. So it's serving the stations, or right now the stops, every 15 minutes throughout most of the day. So this is Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to about 8 p.m. Buses coming every 15 minutes. And that's when the vast majority of riders are using the system. And then in the evenings and on a little bit more on the weekends, service every 30 minutes. And then just to kind of give people a refresher, if you've traveled around Madison, you've probably seen these stations under construction on Rapid Route A. This is essentially what we're looking at for Rapid Route B. There may be a few changes to this, but generally I think the plan is to continue with these same stations, and this is just kind of a more recent construction photo of what those look like. The service will have bus-only lanes. We want to get those where we can. At least half of the route is really required to have bus-only lanes for it to meet the federal definition of bus rapid transit. And again, that just reduces the conflicts that the bus will have to deal with and makes it more reliable. And you'll also see along the proposed route, on this route as well as on the Rapid Route A, that we have a lot of center running bus lanes. And so those are much more reliable because there are, again, less conflicts, so you don't have to deal with things like right-turning vehicles, delivery trucks, things like that, so you get some more consistent travel times, and then fewer right-of-way and utility issues to actually construct the stations, so we don't have to worry as much about buying real estate to actually build the stations on the side of the road. And then it just kind of has that enhanced look and feel for passengers. Again, more similar to what you'd see in a light rail or a streetcar system or something like that. And then another feature of the proposed service and kind of a result of those center running bus lanes are the stations and the median. So we get a lot of questions about how will they work? Are they going to be safe? And so you just want to talk briefly about that. So the stations will be located at signalized intersections that will have kind of a full pedestrian signal, stoplight, that traffic will stop. Pedestrians will be able to access that station and board the bus, which will have doors on both sides. And with the center running stations, people will only have to cross half of the length of the street at one time. So if you're a current bus user, you know that at one end of your trip, you have to cross that full length of the roadway. So in this case, you just have to cross half both times you ride. So it does kind of shorten the one-time crossing distance. Overall, you're still crossing the full street, but it does have a kind of a better feel for not having to traverse, such a wide roadway at one fell swoop. So just to go over the proposed station locations, kind of segment by segment, starting on the north side. So starting on the north side of Madison, I'm not going to list these off, but we have stations identified about every half mile. Again, we try to look at intersections where we know there are current, there's first of all, currently a lot of people using the bus. There's destinations in the area. There's a lot of residential in the area. Again, we try to either look for areas where there's an existing signalized intersection or where one would make sense to be added. And so these are the stations that we have identified on the north side. On the central segment, these stations are already under construction with the exception of the Milwaukee and North intersection where there would be a new northbound side running station here, but the rest of these are already under construction because they'll also be served by Rapid Route A. But I just wanted to show those here. And then moving down into South Madison, again, stations every half mile here, and kind of similarly looking at some of those different patterns to identify the different locations as well as public feedback. And Mike's going to talk a little bit about some changes we've made here in South Madison with stations as a result of public feedback. And then these are the station locations we have right now planned for Fitchburg. So one at Greenway, one at Post, one at High Ridge. And then right now, the current Route B ends at Cahill, Maine. But with the bus rapid transit route, we're proposing to continue it one more stop to McKee, where the bus will actually kind of have its terminal station on the south end. There will have an en-route charging at that location, as well as restrooms for the driver to use during the layover. So that was sort of a location that was identified because looking for those features, that was a place where we could make that work. And then the bus will turn around and then continue back the same pattern north. So I'm going to go over typical sections. Actually, I'm going to pass it over to Mike. I think you're going to start this part. Talk about typical sections or kind of what we're thinking for where the bus lanes will be located compared to what the roadway looks like today.
Thank you, Liz. I'm Mike Czechvala, Capital Projects Manager with Metro Transit. I'm just going to talk without the microphone if that's okay. I'm a little bit of a loud talker. If anybody has trouble hearing me and wants me to use the microphone, just let me know. So I'm going to go into a little more detail than Liz did as we kind of drill down on some of the details of North-South Bus Rapid Transit. I'm going to talk about the typical sections, so not every little inch of the route, but some of the kind of major cross sections as we start from the north and work our way to the south. So we start on Packers Avenue, which is on the north side of Madison. Currently, Packers in Northport is 3 travel lanes in each direction. The concept with North-South BRT would be to convert the left-hand lane from general purpose to bus only. That provides the bus only lane to improve the travel times and reliability of the route. It also it also matches the capacity needs along Northport and Packers a little bit better. There's a little bit more capacity there than is needed, and so having 2 travel lanes in each direction should hopefully have travel speeds and driving behavior that's a little bit more appropriate for an urban street like that. You also see the bus stops that are on the side being moved to the BRT stations that are in the middle. We're going to skip over that middle part on the isthmus on East Washington Avenue. There are changes being made with East-West Bus Rapid Transit. No changes to that will be made with the north-south route. We'll just use those bus lanes that are being built right now. As we move onto South Park Street, we have essentially 2 travel lanes in each direction on the north section of Park Street, north of Fish Hatchery Road, between about Fish Hatch and West Washington. And then we have a 3rd lane that's kind of an auxiliary lane. It provides some parking. It has the bus stops in it. In some cases, it's a bus lane or an extra travel lane. So the concept with BRT on this section of Park Street would be, again, to take that left lane and convert it from a general purpose travel lane to bus only, and then take that auxiliary lane and convert it into a general purpose travel lane. So that would provide the same 2 travel lanes for vehicles in each direction, and then the bus only lane in the middle. There is a section on Park Street in the southbound direction I'll talk about in a second, where we are proposing to maintain basically the current cross section with 2 travel lanes and parking, and have BRT be in mixed traffic for about 2 or 3 blocks. I'll talk about that in just a second. Going south on Park Street, south of Fish Hatchery, we actually are planning to have a full roadway reconstruction of that road. Besides the need to incorporate bus rapid transit, we have some other unmet needs and challenges on Park Street. The pavement is in very poor condition. The bike facilities are lacking. There are very few trees along this section of Park Street. So we're combining a planned pavement replacement and reconstruction project into the bus rapid transit project. And so doing both of those at the same time, there's some efficiencies there of rebuilding the road and then retrofitting BRT as we rebuild the road, as opposed to rebuild the road and then retrofitting BRT into it, or building BRT and then reconstructing the road around it. So I'm going to walk through this cross-section in a little bit more detail. Today, the cross-section varies a little bit. There's always 2 travel lanes on Park Street, and then there's a 3rd auxiliary lane. That auxiliary lane can function as a right turn lane. In some places, it's a bus lane. In some places, it's parking. It has some semblance of a bike facility, although it's not really an appropriate bike facility given the speeds and volumes on Park Street. The concept with BRT would be similar to convert the left lane from a general purpose travel lane to a bus lane, and then move the travel lanes to the outside, so we retain 2 general purpose travel lanes in each direction. And when we do that, a lot of these streets that were built years ago were built just a little too wide. Every lane had, a foot extra in it. The medians and gutter pans were all just built, kind of a little wider than we do today. So we're always able to sneak an extra couple feet out of the street and still provide the same lanes and same infrastructure when we rebuild a street like this. So what we're able to do with those extra few feet is widen the sidewalk on the west side. So you can see on the west side of Park Street, the sidewalk has been widened from your standard 5 feet to 8, 9, or 10 feet to provide a 2-way sidewalk as well as bicycle facility. And then we'd also like to widen the terraces where we can in order to fit more terrace trees. The terrace is the area between the sidewalk and the street. So right now the terraces on Park Street are often only 3 feet wide, and so that's why we see very few trees on Park Street. So we'd like to really expand the tree canopy along Park Street with the project. Going south of the Beltline, coming into Fitchburg where we are today here, this section of Fish Hatchery Road was reconstructed a few years ago. And so it looks like what's shown on the top there, 2 travel lanes in each direction. On the right-hand side is a combined bus and bike facility. And then a path has been built on the west side of Fish Hatchery Road. So we're not making major changes to this section of Fish Hatchery because we would like to preserve that investment that was made a couple of years ago. And here we will simply be retrofitting bus rapid transit into that cross section. Similar to other sections, we're converting the left lane from general purpose traffic to bus only, and we're converting that bus and bike facility on the right into a general purpose travel lane. This is similar to other strategies on the farther north along the corridor. It's also very similar to what we are doing right now on Mineral Point Road. Mineral Point Road has a very similar cross section to Fish Hatchery. We're doing this swapping the buses from the right side to the left side. And then on Mineral Point, we are building a new path. In this case, the path already exists. I'm going to talk about the Fish Hatchery Road path and the bicycle facilities along Fish Hatchery Road because it's been of some interest. I think it's worth discussion. So Fish Hatch has two bike facilities. It has the two-way path on the west side of the street, and then it has the shared bus and bike facility on the street. So with this concept, we would be removing the shared bus and bike facility on the street and relying on the path. And the reason for that is when we build these bike facilities and we look at the use of these bike facilities, we've started to notice that the biggest concern is bicyclists who are not the very aggressive and confident cyclists, but the cyclists who are occasional riders, people who are not willing to ride in traffic. And so we've in the streets that have higher speeds and high volumes, those are really the facilities that they use and they prefer. And this is kind of a graphic that kind of shows that. When we look at a chart like this, street volumes on the y-axis here and speeds on the x-axis here, when we have low speeds and low volumes on local streets, it's pretty appropriate to just have bikes ride in traffic, local streets, bike boulevards, things of that nature. As we start to have a little bit more speed and volume, we start to need some separate facility for bicyclists. That's usually an on-street bike lane, perhaps a buffered bike lane. As you get to the higher speed, higher volume facilities, we typically gravitate towards the fully protected facilities, the off-street or barrier protected facilities, because that is what people use and that's what they feel comfortable with. So that's what we're proposing. We're also investigating the possibility of having the center bus lanes be shared by bicyclists. There are probably some barriers to that, but that's something that we'd like to keep on the table for the time being. I'd also like to go through some updates that we made since the November-December meeting. So this is the second of our public information meetings for the North-South BRT locally preferred alternative. We were here a few months ago, and we did receive some good feedback from people, and so I'd just like to kind of go over what's changed since then. Starting on the north side, and I know this is on the other side of the route, but I'm sure people ride and go places. I talked about this northern terminal. The problem today is that Route B, its terminal is here on Northport and Sherman. And so what has to happen is the bus goes out, it runs around this loop on Troy, Green, and Northport, and then it comes back and serves its layover, its terminal at the end of the line at Northport and Sherman. So anybody getting on that green loop has to ride around, and then the bus stops at Northport and Sherman, and they have to wait. That's the end of the line where the driver waits their time before they start the next trip. And so that can be 5, 10, 15 minutes or even more. And so that's very inconvenient. It's a significant delay. We talked about different ways to fix that problem. What we're proposing with the LPA is to shift that terminal from Northport and Sherman to Northport and Kennedy. That still would have people boarding at a few stops, having to ride around the loop and wait through the layover, but far, far fewer people. Anybody at Troy and Northport, or most of the people around School Road, will be able to just get off before going around the loop, or get on after the bus has waited at the terminal. We looked at a couple other options for this, but I'm not going to go into it because it is the other end of the line, and I am available to discuss if anybody wants to know more. I also talked about this station at the intersection of Northport and Packers. We kind of drew a gray box around this area saying, we know this intersection is very poor, we know we want to do something with it. We still don't know exactly what we want to do with the intersection to rationalize it and provide better facilities for buses going through the intersection. But one change that we're making is no longer showing one station at Packers and Northport, but splitting them into two. One at Packers and Elka and one at Northport and Dryden. Kind of related to that, because that station is moving from Northport and Packers south to Elka. The station at International is now sort of too close to Elka but too far from Aberg. So we're proposing to relocate that station from International to the next major street to the south, which is Schlimgen. And that station would come with a new traffic signal at Schlimgen. Moving to the south side, I mentioned retaining some parking on Park Street. We did a fair amount of research in coordination with stakeholders along this section of Park Street. We have a number of businesses that really rely on that on-street parking for their customers. They really don't have any off-street alternatives. That really doesn't work to do something in the neighborhoods to change the parking rules on the side streets. And we also looked at different ways to allow buses to go through there in mixed traffic where they get their own special signal at the Park and West Washington intersection and then are able to sort of continue through that. So this section between West Washington and Aaron Street is proposed to be in mixed traffic with parking remaining on the southbound side. We also found a need for on-street parking northbound on Park Street between roughly Olin and Lakeside. That parking we were able to fit in by eliminating the southbound left turn from Park Street onto Emerson, which is that street in between Lakeside and Olin. So that one was able to be fit in while still maintaining the bus lanes in each direction. Moving to the south, we had a number of people express interest in stations at Fish Hatchery or Lakeside and also at Cedar. To accommodate that, we're proposing to split the Olin station into two, one at Cedar, one at Fish Hatchery Lakeside, and then no longer have the Olin Street station. Similar to these spacing issues now, the Cedar is a little bit too close to Wingra, so we're proposing to relocate the Wingra station to a station called Plainert Wingra. Basically, we're just moving it to the other side of the river. The street on the south side of Wingra Creek is called Plainert Drive, so just relocating that to the other side of Wingra Creek. South side of Madison, this is the site of the former South Transfer Point. South Transfer Point will no longer be available for Metro after sometime next year or so. So we looked at different ways to accommodate the transfers between routes B, G, H, and O in this area. The solution that we came up with was this jog between Park Street. So the bus would come south on Park Street, turn right on Hughes, and then this is called Cypress. So we kind of cut the corner and go Hughes, Cypress, and over on Badger. We would have a station on Hughes just west of Park Street that would be fairly easy to cross the street and get between the different sides and transfer between the different routes at Hughes and Park there. Talked about a couple things that we heard but were not able to accomplish or are not recommending. One comment that we got was to somehow get north-south BRT up to the airport. So we looked at a couple different options, including having it kind of double back and go to the airport. And also, it could be a branch of itself. So for example, you could have alternating buses on B1 going to the west onto Troy Drive, and then B2 splitting and going to the east towards the airport. We are not recommending this because this would be essentially the same service levels that are on existing Route D2 if we did the split, and we have significantly more ridership on the west half of this split once you get past Sherman Avenue. So we're recommending to keep the route on Troy, Green, and Northport as opposed to going to the airport. We also had significant interest in shifting the route from Packers to Sherman on the north side. We are not recommending that change. The main reason is Sherman is a pretty local street. The ridership between Sherman and Packers is about the same, but there is a lot more room for ridership growth on Packers. And if we did the shift from Packers to Sherman, we'd essentially not have any bus lanes on the north side of the route. We were aiming for having bus lanes on about half of the route. And so eliminating those bus lanes on Northport and Packers would significantly reduce the number of bus lanes that would be on the project. Okay, now something that might be of a little bit more interest. On the Fitchburg side, we investigated this potential extension south of McKee to East Sherrill or Lacey. This extension would have pretty clear benefits. It would expand BRT service to Fitchburg's Civic Center and kind of the library, the city hall, and a bunch of other things in that area. It would also really set up that area for future growth as the area develops. It just doesn't seem to be in the cards for right now. There's just not enough there today to establish that level of service. However, it does have more need. It does have the need for more transit service than exists today. So what we're working on with the city of Fitchburg is this kind of expansion of Route 65 and Route 75. The 65 and 75 today are only peak hour routes. They only operate on weekdays between about 6 and 9 in the morning and 3 and 6 in the afternoon. There's no midday, no evening, and no weekend service. So what we'd like to do is kind of have these routes come together at McKee and Fish Hatchery. Now this could be 3 different routes. It could be the 65 and 75 kind of operates as one, providing continuous east-west service within Fitchburg, or these could be kind of unofficial extensions of Route B. So for example, Route B could come down to McKee Road, and then every other one could extend on the blue line as Route 65 or something. We feel like this is a good step to kind of start and establish all-day service on that corridor, and then work towards the growth that would lead to a future expansion of the BRT service. Talk quickly about funding. I'm almost there, so just bear with me here. This project is a capital project. Does not have significant changes to the operating side of the route. So building the bus lanes, the stations, the signal priority, and the other components that Liz talked about, that would be funded largely through a federal small starts grant. Similar to the east-west line, we would be applying for as much federal grant funding as we could. The maximum for that is 80%. There would also be some local funding that would consist of state funding, as well as City of Madison capital funding, and some capital funding contributed by the City of Fitchburg, who's a partner on this project. Operating costs, as I mentioned, basically similar to what's there today. The buses will not use diesel fuel, and there will be some savings with converting from the diesel fuel buses to the electric buses. There will also be some cost increases to maintain the stations and some other things. All told, it will more or less cancel out. Operating costs will be comparable between what's operating today and the BRT service. So some next steps, talk about schedule quickly here. We are in the second phase of planning, environmental review, and design, so that's why we're here today. We'll continue to refine this design, refine the locally preferred alternative. 26, 27, 28 will be, the project will be under construction. We hope to have the service operating by 2028. The path to the locally preferred alternative includes feedback at public and stakeholder meetings like this one. So we're glad you're here. We're glad you're providing feedback to the project. Finalize recommendation and create a report, which we're working on now, which will include some of that feedback in, and then adoption by both the City of Madison and the City of Fitchburg. This is the last of our second round of public information meetings, so thanks everybody for coming. I have some links here. MadisonBRT.com is the project website. At MadisonBRT.com, you will find east-west BRT section and a north-south BRT section. So on east-west, you'll find construction updates and that kind of thing. On the north-south side, you'll find some of these planning documents and ways to get a hold of us and more information as it comes out and becomes available. We also have an email address, brt@cityofmadison.com. If you'd like to call us, 608-266-4466. QR code there just goes to our website, and this presentation will be on our website, again, madisonbrt.com. I'll leave this slide up in case anybody needs to write that down. And I think with that, we'll take some questions. I have Kristen here to help me with questions. She'll be coming around with the microphone.
Thank you. Mike, I thought I heard you say that the new side path that's proposed for Park south of Fish Hatchery was 8 or 9 feet wide?
Yeah, we're still working on some of those details, but it'll be at least 8. We'd like to have it be as close to 10 as possible.
The absolute minimum
Correct.
standard, and standard for safe two-way bicycle traffic is 10 feet. So I hope that you will do everything possible to get 10 feet.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, thank you.
About that jog at Hughes Street or the south transfer point, are you putting in a light or something where it comes down to Badger?
Yeah, so this traffic signal at Hughes and Park already exists. This is a all-way stop sign, I believe, and then this is a two-way stop sign. We need this traffic signal to make the eastbound left turn onto Park Street. There's no way we would make that without a signal. This intersection at Cypress and Badger does not need a signal because we're making the right onto Badger Road and the left off of Badger Road.
What about those times when there's traffic on the Beltline and everybody takes Badger Road thinking it's like a shortcut?
Yeah, we can take a look at that. I don't think the need for a signal has been shown to us yet, but we can take a look and see if maybe something.
I think this whole thing is just a terrible idea.
Okay.
Because it's another turn there. And the whole point of BRT is to avoid turns so you don't have the time involved. And what's especially surprising about this is that the city owns the lot at the corner, and they're planning to build a fire station and an apartment building. But why is that taking precedence over this when this is the project?
It's
incomprehensible, really.
Okay. Well, I'll take your comments on that. There are some things that are a little bit outside of our control, but you are correct that basically there are three parcels in here that are being developed. This jog is not super optimal, but it's not. We looked at different ways to accommodate the station on Badger west of Park, and it's just very difficult to fit it in. I'm not trying to debate with you or say you're wrong. I'm just trying to kind of give you some context. But I'll take your comment that you don't like that jog.
It's more time. That's it.
Yep.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a difficult jog because I usually take Badger across Park Street to get to Fish Hatchery. There's a lot of density in Nob Hill and Capitol View neighborhood that uses that intersection a lot. So that's going to be kind of awkward for those of us who live in that neighborhood. Also, since I use Park Street a lot, mostly for cars and bicycling, what accommodation for bicycling is there on Park Street?
So on this section of Park Street, the bicycle facility would be that shared use path on the west side. Let me go back to a map here, if we have one farther up that kind of shows the whole thing. So the Park Street reconstruction that I talked about would be this section between Badger Road and Fish Hatchery. So that would be the stretch where we would have a side path on the west side of Park Street. We are then planning to make some improvements to this intersection at Park Street, Fish Hatchery, and Parr. Parr Street is the little street on the east side of Fish Hatchery. That will get you to a nice bike facility on West Shore Drive, which is one short block east of Park Street. And then we're also planning on making a better connection between West Shore, Vilas, West Washington, and North Park Street. Bike lanes would then start up again on Park Street north of West Washington. So we'd like to have continuous bike facilities along Park Street, but the only section that we're reconstructing is between Badger and Fish Hatch. That might have been a little bit more information than you asked for, but
No,
I thought it would
that's
include that
because I
context.
would frequently commute to UW Hospital, which is my employer, so
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that corridor is safe.
So you're saying you don't really have any pull with the whole Badger Road? I mean,
Oh, we're
Madison?
one of many that have interest in the few land assets that are out there.
because you want it to be bus rapid transit, not bus sort of.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on that a little. I agree, and there are different ways to look at this, but One thing that this does is it eliminates us having to go through the Park and Badger intersection. So we're basically eliminating one big traffic signal and replacing it with 3, or I guess 2 stop signs. I think all told, the travel time impact is going to be relatively minor. I get it that, you know, BRT lines usually don't kind of have that kind of squiggle in them. But you know, there are some benefits in that we are able to actually have an off-street facility where we can make transfers and we are able to bypass that busy intersection. I'm not trying to take away from what you're saying. I'm just trying to kind of provide some context.
What is the demand going to be on the corner of Park and Badger? There's a bunch of, going to be a fire station, and what else is going to be going on there?
Oh, I'm not sure entirely. I'm sure there's apartments. There is a new relocated fire station. There is a project and a website. I'd encourage you to take a look at it. I don't have the website or the project name, but there is some of this information is available on the City of Madison's planning website. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head.
I think another kind of goal of moving it out was also a pedestrian kind of environment issue. The Park and Badger intersection is obviously a very large intersection, and when we looked at where would the station go, kind of putting people in a pretty pedestrian hostile environment. So that was kind of part of the thought, was with the redesign of that group of parcels, we could design that in a way that is a lot more kind of comfortable for pedestrians to be in. So that, I think, was another part of that decision.
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, part of it was with this reconstruction project, our goal was to make the Park and Badger Road intersection more pedestrian friendly, less vehicle oriented. The main thing that you notice when you look out there is that there are just too many lanes. There's a right turn lane in every direction. There's an eastbound double left turn lane. There's just a lot of lanes. And so then we said, okay, we need to accommodate these transfers between the different routes. We also we started out with a station on Badger just west of Park. And so then we started looking at, what's going in there and what's already there. And the fire station has a big driveway that we need. And it's not impossible. And we didn't just give up, but we said it's just going to be very difficult to do everything we want at that intersection with the bus lanes, with the special signal phases, with having enough space for the couple buses that go through there. And so that's where we landed at this conclusion. But again, that's why we're here to hear what you have to say and think about it more and listen to different perspectives. So I'm glad we're thinking about it. Maybe we can go to the next. If somebody hasn't spoken yet, let's go that route.
Yeah, just a general. So I know the green means mixed traffic, but does it? In the areas that are green, will you still be exiting the bus on the left in the center, or does that kind of flip back and forth in place?
Yes, good question. I'm sorry if I didn't explain this. So the blue is bus lanes, and the green is mixed traffic. In some cases, like here, you have green in one direction and blue in the other direction. The color of the dot indicates whether it's center running or side running. So most of the dots along Park Street here are white, indicating that they're center running. The gray at Hughes and Park and Badger and Fish Hatchery are gray. They are side running. It gets a little bit complicated, but here we have center running. Greenway is actually what we haven't really, this is a little bit farther down than what we're thinking, but we're thinking that this Greenway, the northbound, might have to be side running. The southbound we think should be center running. So we have one that we kind of are sure about and one that we don't really know yet. So we just said that one's center running. This jog to Caddis Bend and Cahill, Maine, we're thinking that those will be side running. On that street, there's not a median, so they kind of have to be side running. This one here, and I should have talked about this a little bit more, but this is a black dot, which means it's a terminal, which doesn't really tell you anything. But the thought there would be to run around that loop in a clockwise direction and then stop northbound on Triverton Pike Drive. So this north-south street here is called Triverton Pike. And so that's a place where we could have our bus charging infrastructure. as well as bathrooms for the drivers. So with this project includes an extension of Route B from Cahill, Maine to McKee and Fish Hatchery. So this Route B currently does not go that far south. Hope that helps.
I've accumulated 2 questions and a comment. I will remind you again, as I have in the past, that there are destinations for bikers on the east side of Fish Hatchery Road and Park Street. And so as a minimum, to accommodate those destinations and sources, you would need the shared bus bike lanes. You did not mention what was going to happen to bike accommodations between Badger and Hughes, since the BRT is going to be off of there.
Oh, so I'll take your comment. The path would continue. The reconstruction project would include this block between Badger and Hughes, so the path would go down to Badger. And then there are bike facilities along Badger. We're separate project. We're looking to expand the bike facilities along Badger, but it would connect into Badger.
Okay, and so that means that the east side destination problem would continue. And then just a comment, I can understand the concern about the jog at Hughes and Cedar for slowing the throughput of the BRT, but I note that it, like the jog here in Hatchery Hill, it puts the station in a place where there's population on both sides, whereas the southeast quadrant of the Badger and Park is a wasteland and would not be contributing any passengers. So I think that's a good thing for that jog.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let me, this isn't really directly related to what you said or asked, but I'm going to bring it up because it's tangentially related. So we have talked about this jog up to Caddis Bend and Cahill, Maine up here. We feel, especially since that's near the end of the route, so, you know, maximizing the speed for people who are just going one more station isn't really, you know, that important. We thought that this jog was important. It'll cost a couple of minutes, but it really provides service on the west side of Fish Hatchery that's needed for that neighborhood. There's really nothing on the east side of Fish Hatchery. So, so we're, what did I say?
There's fish on the east side. That's
Oh, okay, well, yeah, pets are allowed under certain circumstances on the bus, but I don't know. But anyway, kind of the same thing with Triverton Pike Drive here is, you know, we could have put this terminal on Fish Hatchery or somewhere else on this loop, but we thought by pushing it a little bit to the west, that gets it a little bit closer to the center of gravity of where people are coming from and going to. So just a little more thought behind some of those micro decisions.
Yeah, so regarding the southern terminus there and the choice of Triverton Pike, I think we discussed this a bit at the TTC meeting, but and you know, the possibility of shifting it over to Chapel Valley Road, which would then give people the opportunity to jump off the bus directly at McKee Farms Park, as well as for the seniors who live on the west side of Chapel Valley Road to be able to jump onto the bus without having to walk all the way over to Triverton Pike. Can you remind me again, what would prevent that from happening?
Yeah, we did talk about that a little bit. So Chapel Valley is a street one to the west of Triverton Pike. I think that would be a possibility. One thing that we need is some real estate on the side of the street. That exists on Triverton Pike Drive because there's a City of Fitchburg owned stormwater feature on that side of the street, so we could rearrange things and put that in there. I don't know as much about Chapel Valley, so we could look at that. The other thought in our mind is that we wanted to kind of think about this future extension to the south and not go as far to the west, which would make things a little bit awkward if we did want to extend to the south at some point. If we did want to extend to the south at some point, I think there still could be a station here at Triverton Pike. I think that would still make a lot of sense. I think we thought that Triverton Pike would kind of give us the most options for connections and continuing. But, we can take a look at Chapel Valley as well.
Would that be sort of a transfer point to a 75 or a 65 at that point?
Right, yeah. So I would envision the 65 and 75. We've looked at different ways of interlining 65 to the 75, the B to the 65, the B to the 75. And this tight little loop here provides a lot of options for doing that. And so it would be a lot like the former South Transfer Point, where it's not a formal transfer point like we've had in the past. We have, a dozen routes coming in and out, but we have a couple. People are making connections between a couple of routes. It'd be a lot like Sheboygan Avenue in Eau Claire on the near west side of Madison, where we've kind of replaced 4 huge transfer points with a bunch of smaller ones around the system. That's kind of what we'd envision.
On Park Street, between West Wash and Fish Hatch, where bikes are being removed today, bikes are allowed. I was there earlier. Half of that is an all ages and ability network, I think, so things are supposed to get better there, not worse. Removing bikes from that section, it's critical. It's a linchpin. There's not really any way around it if you're trying to get from the Union to Fitchburg or something. Since it's going to be mixed traffic for half that distance in the southbound direction, what's preventing us from saying, let's just have it be mixed traffic for those 6 blocks in both directions? It seems like we're already making concessions. There's going to be some, I think the term I heard was in-lane bus boarding. I heard that term today where, the center run buses will be picking people up. Yeah, there's cars behind them, but it's rush hour.
Yes, let me kind of take that one at a time. So we really do not want to be stopping in the middle in mixed traffic. We are going to be doing that a little bit in east-west BRT, but that's really not a great environment. Looking at this section of between West Wash and Aaron Street, the northbound and southbound sections, and first of all, I just want to acknowledge your comment, and I'm not trying to push back. I just try to provide context. But more often, I'm just listening and taking it in. Anyway, southbound is where we have a significant need for on-street parking for the businesses. I'll also say we have, I hesitate to call it a bike facility, but we have a 13-foot wide travel lane, of which parking takes up 7 or 8 feet. So we have 5 or so feet of something that's used by bicyclists. When I bike there, that's where I go, in between the parked cars and the travel lane. So that again, I'm not going to call it a bike facility, but something will continue to exist on that stretch between West Washington and Aaron. On the northbound side, it's a little bit different. The businesses on the east side of Park Street, there are much fewer of them, and they basically all have their own off-street parking. So if you go there, and Liz and I have spent quite a bit of time out there looking at parking and looking at how it works. Although parking is allowed on the northbound side, you will find almost no cars parked there at any time. And so basically what happens today is it functions as a third travel lane. So that not functioning as much as a bike facility, and also not having the need for parking, said it's kind of a different formula in the southbound direction compared to the northbound direction. But again, I'm taking your comments. What you said is valid. Again, just trying to provide some context. We're going to be talking. There are a lot of unmet needs on Park Street between bikes, transit, parking, and it's also a very congested roadway. There's really not enough of anything there. It's also, we would like to be able to reconstruct that section and really put in a better bike facility, but we're just not able with what we have available for this project.
I think the plan is to really focus on those parallel nearby routes. So South Shore on the east side, and then on the west side, we're looking at a few different options, and we are going to look at how can we enhance those parallel routes. So not just say, oh, go over here, actually add wayfinding, actually add better crossings, actually add ways for bikes to channel into those parallel routes. So that's, I think, one of the big things that we'll be working on between now and kind of the next few weeks to figure out what will that look like.
Yeah, so connections back to Brooks and Mills on the west side, and then I mentioned West Shore on the east side, and I know that you still have to get to Park Street. You still have to get to wherever, if your destination is on Park Street, but it at least provides something that's at least comparable to what's there today, we hope.
Yeah, that's the key about parallel routes, is getting access to the Park Street businesses, or, access to them from the backside. Same thing on the west side of Park Street. There's an access parallel route. I know there's a lot of businesses on the west side of Park Street that have bicycle racks, but trying to get to them is difficult. So, yeah, having parallel routes is a good idea.
Okay. All right, I think we're going to take, it sounds like you've got a follow-up. Maybe we'll take Steve, and then I think we'll be done after that. We'll be around for a few minutes if you want to talk to us too. So don't worry. We'll be here for a few more minutes after these two. Go ahead.
So just a follow-up. So on the east-west BRT, we were promised alternate routes over by East Washington, and we're still kind of waiting for the city to do anything with those promises. Farther south, where the path is proposed, between Plainerd and Buick Street, it's 21 driveways and crossings. If you measure it out, 25% of that distance will be in a crossing. And a biker, which is going downhill, an average flat-speed biker will never be not in a crossing for more than about 4 seconds. It's not a low-stress bike facility. Just because it's off-street doesn't make it safe. I biked it last week and had 2 close calls with cars pulling out in front of me. So that's a point of contention. It only serves the west side only marginally. There's a lot of stuff on the east side. There's Walgreens, there's Penn Park, there's apartment buildings. There's a lot of neighbors who will be not served by that bike facility, and the ones who do use that will be in danger. So I like the path, but it is not the all ages ability network that people make it up to be. It's going to be a very dangerous facility, much more dangerous than the Mineral Point Road widened sidewalk.
Okay, we'll take that comment and we'll go to Mr. Arnold.
I'll start. Any progress on getting parking meters and charging for the parking? Has that been agreed to yet for the areas where the parking will be retained?
No, have not started those conversations yet. Again, we're still in the hopper. We're focused again. I just like to. It's a real gray area here all the time, but we're focused on the locally preferred alternative, and I don't mind jumping ahead, but I do try to focus. So what we're really focusing on is the route, the stations, and the general running characteristics of the route. So things like lane widths and where the parking meters will be, that's a little bit down the road. We want to start that conversation at the right time, but we have not started them yet.
Okay, I'll make like a preparatory comment here that the reason I talk about bikes a lot is because I like everything else, all right? BRT is good, the route's good, the stations are good, everything is good. That's why I'm bugging you about bikes. The other thing I wanted to remind you, echoing Craig's comments about driveways, many of us prefer to be in the bus bike lanes because every driveway is an intersection and every intersection is a hazard. So another thing that can be done, and I don't know if you're planning, but you should try to, is driveway consolidation. So that the businesses along there that each have their own driveways should be asked to share driveways and connect their parking to cut down the number of intersections. The amount of green paint on the fish hatchery side path is just amazing because there are so many driveways.
Yep, absolutely. The things you mentioned, driveway consolidation, the green paint to give people more visibility that this is a crossing and bikes could be coming in either direction, the raised intersections. And you mentioned something about Park Street parking and metered parking. And I know what you're talking about, Steve, but would you mind just saying it so that maybe others know? And I don't want to speak for you, so I'm just going to ask you if you could elaborate on that for just 2 seconds.
Yeah, so the point is that all may park, all must pay. So if we are giving up a more direct BRT to provide parking for these businesses, it should be paid parking, there should be meters there. I think it's outside the zone that would normally be metered parking for the city of Madison, but on the BRT route, if there to be parking, street parking, for one, it will force high turnover because people will have limits on the meters, and for another, it will remind people that they're taking valuable curb real estate. I know there are companies these days that are sending me email talking about curb management, and curbs are a incredible valuable resource, whether they be for bikes or parking or buses, for cafes, and cities should manage them more as a resource than they currently do, at least according to this company, and I tend to agree.
Thank you. So just to wrap up here, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to thank you for your interest in North-South Bus Rapid Transit. Encourage you to go to the website, sign up. We're really excited about this project. The city of Madison is investing in the west side, downtown, and the east side with east-west BRT. We really think that some of these investments should also be made on the north and south side of Madison and in Fitchburg. There is a cost to investment, but there are federal funds available. We've been successful in getting those federal funds. These are our those are our taxes and fees that go to the federal government, and so we'd like to bring them back to Madison. So again, feel free to contact us, brt@cityofmadison.com or 266-4466. We'll be around for a couple more minutes, and then just thanks and have a good evening.